What the Tech is brought to you by Storyblocks. Storyblocks Video gives you studio quality 4K stock video without blowing your budget. 2 words, unlimited downloads. To find out more, go to storyblocks.com/whatthetech. Hover. Find a domain name for your idea. Go to hover.com/WTT and get 10% off your first purchase. Again, that's hover.com/WTT. Hover. Domain names for your ideas. Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul? How's everything? You got a busy day today, don't you?
Yes, I said to my wife, "Today sucks," and she said, "What's different about today?" And I was just like, "Shut up." It's been hectic. I mean, the way I structure my day, since I know this is fascinating, is I do what I call deep work, which Cal Neuwirth ripped off for his best-selling book. And I try not to be distracted in the morning, get at least 2-3 hours of writing done, before the rest of the day unfolds. And then, podcasts happen and Skype happens and things happen and, you get interrupted more. And that's fine. As long as I can get that done, I kind of feel good about myself and about the day. And today it was just a shit show from the moment I got up. Actually, I didn't
Listen, I got it.
last night.
I got it. I had the week from hell last week because WrestleMania was in New York. And I know a lot of people are very interested in WrestleMania that are watching. Actually, it's really funny. The chat room right now, I know that you're not watching it because you get distracted, but the chat room right now is talking about wrestling. So there is a tremendous crossover between technology and wrestling. I can't begin to tell you how many tech journalists I saw at the Barclays Center and all the wrestling shows that I went to. It's actually really funny to see the crossover here because I think it's a pop culture thing. If you're in your mid-30s and you grew up with this, you cover, pop culture, you're kind of connected to this. So it was actually pretty cool to see. I had to go to 4 events actually I was supposed to go to 8, but I couldn't do it, but I had to cover almost everything that was happening. And the only thing I didn't go to was MetLife Stadium for WrestleMania. That's the only event I did not go to, which I'm so glad because it saved me from losing my mind. But I understand the hecticness of life sometimes.
Yeah.
But, and then you have moments that you have nothing to do. It's wild.
I mean, this like, we're looking out at, I guess this is 3 months of travel, and it is really complicated. I'm going to be in New York tomorrow. I will not see you. I won't see anybody. It is the most complex end-to-end trip, all-day event, and then in and out kind of thing. But, we've got, I'm forgetting things. I shouldn't even look at my calendar. It's just going to upset me to look at this, but going to go to Miami sometime soon. Why am I telling you this? Baltimore, Boston, China, right? Vancouver, Seattle for build, back to Boston, Miami, at the Netherlands for a work thing, Washington, D.C. for a work thing. And that's now I'm at the middle of June.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God. You're not even
right.
The amount of travel.
That's through the middle of June. And the China thing is complex. Actually, the China thing and the Netherlands things are both work. And it's one of those things where the people who need to get going on this, at the other companies are not moving quickly. And it's like, guys, we gotta, if this is going to happen, it's gotta happen now because the ticket prices are going up and, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, so this is all like exploded in my face this morning. And like I said, I like to very regimented, and it's just not working that way.
Yeah. I get derailed. If something happens, my entire day shuts down and it's absolutely terrible because I can't get anything done beyond that. But we are here. We are talking about technology, and I do want to talk a lot about what's going on Microsoft's side because May build, May release. I want to talk about, and of course, I want to talk about Edge. That we named the show "Living Life on the Edge," and I think almost every other tech podcast is going to be naming that if you're covering this because it suits it so well.
Right.
What's the latest with this? Because you've been using it regularly. I
Mhm.
installed it. I have not begun to use it regularly. I played around with it a little bit. I
Yep.
kind of want to get your opinion of this because the amount of emails that I received last week about people that are Edge users that like
Oh,
Edge the current way, I was
yeah.
actually, and also I was very surprised by
Right.
the positive feedback regarding Edge in its current state from people,
That's nice.
and they were not really welcoming to
Oh,
Chromium.
I'm
So
sorry.
I,
I thought you said okay. Oh, that makes sense. I got you. Okay. Yes. That I'm not surprised by.
so I want to get your opinion of this. Long,
Mhm.
you've been using it for a little bit. What do you
Yep.
like? What do you not like?
Yeah, so I've been using it probably 10 days, maybe a little under 2 weeks, something like that. I'm first of all, I'm a Chrome user. So, every because of what I do for a living in part, and in part, I think just because I am who I am and I'm interested in technology and I just kind of like this stuff. I always evaluate new browsers when they come out. Right today, for example, Opera announced Opera 60. Took a look at that. I'm always interested, and it could be mainstream browsers like Firefox and well, Chrome. I'm already using. Or it could be things like Brave, which are kind of a little out there. And I'm interested in this stuff. And so with Microsoft Edge in particular, because it has always shipped as part of Windows 10, you don't really see a new version of it until a new version of Windows 10 comes out. So twice a year, I take a look at Edge again, with an idea, with an I a notion rather of kind of knocking off, if possible, the things I don't like about it with each version until I get to the point where I can kind of use it. That's been complicated by the fact that Microsoft is dropping this product and they're recasting it now as a new application based on Chromium. So it's going to look and work a lot like Chrome. And like I said, as a Chrome user, I mean, I am a Chrome user. I have many reasons for using Chrome, whatever. But um, to me, the new Edge is very natural and familiar. And there are a couple of compatibility issues. In fact, you'll remember one of them because a couple weeks ago when I first tried doing this, we used vMix call for this podcast. That's one of the things that's not working in the new Edge, although maybe I should have tried it in the latest version. I actually didn't think
I'm
to try
curious
it.
because WebRTC is a very finicky thing.
Mhm.
I have difficulty in Safari to use it, and in Firefox to use it, and even in Chrome to use it. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
I'm curious to see if they found a workaround. I can't imagine WebRTC being a priority for them at this moment, you know.
Well,
But
who could say? I don't
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. All I know is it didn't work. So, I've had those things, I one of the other things I sort of remember from the original, leaked pre-release version I got was that you go to the Xbox.com website, I'm looking at I think it was an Assassin's Creed game that had just like a remastered version of one of the older games that just come out, and because it was a rated mature of some kind, I had to type in my birth date, and it would accept that, and then it would flash the screen, and it would go back, and it would never let me past that moment, whereas it worked fine in Chrome. And so I can't explain these things, whatever. But I will say, since then, using the shipping, pre-release version, I'm on the Canary channel, right? Meaning it's supposed to be updated every night, although I've seen no evidence of that. Um, the only other thing I've noticed from a compatibility standpoint is Grammarly is not working for me. And that might be
oh, interesting.
because I installed the wrong one, right? There's the extension that Microsoft provides in its store, and then there's the extension that Google provides in its store, and that works in the new Edge. So I'm gonna have to figure that one out. I don't have an answer to that right now, but aside from those things, it looks, works, and basically is Chrome, right? Which is for all the good and bad of that. And I'm fine with the UI. I'm fine with the functionality. Obviously, the web rendering is excellent. The memory usage, resource usage can be a little high. It's funny to me, like yesterday, I was trying to put a stop to this, but every Microsoft focused nerd on earth installed this thing and said, "Wow, this is a lot, faster than Chrome." And then they CC some guy from Microsoft because they want to get it retweeted or whatever. And it's like, guys, you just installed the browser. Of course, it's not. Of course, it's faster. It's not loaded down with extensions yet. You haven't synced any of your data to it yet. It is absolutely just as big and heavy as Chrome. There's qualitatively, it is absolutely as big. So maybe Microsoft will fix that. They have a list of all the Google stuff they did not include in the browser, And I'm sure some people will point to that and say, see, it's going to be smaller and lighter because of that. But they're also adding in their own stuff, guys. Like
Yeah.
all the sync services that they got rid of from the Google side, they're adding on their side, and there's all these features to come. I wouldn't look to this as an answer to the thin light browser for low performance computers. It's going to be like Chrome, but I think that's fine. I mean, I think it's fine. I like it a lot. So I switched to this thing as my daily browser basically on day one, and
And how'd it go? Did you have any kind of issues in the first
uh,
couple of weeks of doing it, or are you just now it's like,
no,
okay, this is what I'm
no.
using?
Well, yeah. So the issues I raised earlier, I mean, those are
Yeah.
the little things I've noticed. It doesn't do well. So it's like any new browser. Let's say you decided you're going to switch to Firefox tomorrow for some reason. A couple of things you would want to do is go find all the extension you use so it works the way you want. You might want to customize the user interface. You want to definitely want to import the data, and that data could be your bookmarks, your passwords, the autofill data, and other personal data that like payment methods and so forth. And you can do all that stuff in the new Edge. The sync engine is not fully up and running, and so right now it only syncs new Edge to new Edge, meaning PC to PC, only in this browser and only for favorites, which are Microsoft's bookmarks, right? So you have to like if you install it on two different computers, like I have, or actually install it on more than two, but you can sign into your Microsoft account. You can set up sync, but it's not going to sync passwords, right? So if you're already using Chrome, you just go into the browser, you just import the passwords from Chrome, and then they're in there, and it's fine. It's not syncing them, but they're in there. It's like a one-time import. So I guess if I add a new web service or something with a password and account, I'm going to have to recreate that on a different browser or whatever. So that's it's a little thing. It's a beta, right? So that's kind of easy. There are a bunch of features coming that are kind of hidden right now. One thing you're going to
Hmm.
want to take a look at is that in Chrome they have the Chrome flags interface. Chrome colon slash slash flags. We have that in the new Edge as well. It's Edge colon slash slash flags. And from there, you can enable things like smooth scrolling. You can enable the dark mode if you're using dark mode in Windows 10. These are features that are just not in the browser UI, but they are actually available.
Interesting.
And maybe they're not completely
Is it
reliable.
is
Maybe
it
they're
set up the
not
same way, or is it a different layout? I guess it would be the same exact thing, right?
the same way as Chrome.
As Chrome.
Yeah, the flags interface is the same. If you are an Edge user, right? So looked at like just looking at the browser window, it looks like Chrome. It's got the same like curved tabs and basic UI is basically the same. But when you right click on something, when you open the system menu up in the right corner, those menus are styled like Edge. So they have Edge icons. They have the Edge kind of text style. When you go into interfaces like extensions and settings, they don't actually look exactly like they do in fact, they look nothing like they do in Edge, but they also don't look like they do in Chrome. So they're kind of like new interfaces, but they're styled like Microsoft Edge type
Hmm.
interfaces. So they're vaguely familiar. Um, if you rely on Edge specific features, and there are actually a ton of them, right? The tab management features are a good example. The annotation features, the reading view functionality that works across web pages, PDFs, ebooks, and EPUBs today, not available. you know, there's a bunch of that stuff, and so the types of things that might cause a person to use Edge just aren't there yet, maybe in most cases, and so that might be a problem for people. But this is another thing. I got into this a little bit with a guy on Twitter yesterday because I think there's kind of an insular worldview that we get sucked into, which is in this case, you're a Microsoft guy and you want Microsoft stuff and you just like Microsoft. You might even still use Windows Phone, which I think is a dangerous and terrible mistake. But whatever, that's your whole mindset. And so you want to use Microsoft Edge. And so you look at this and you think, well, this doesn't look a lot like Microsoft Edge. They need to fix that, right? Now, my response to that is
Do they?
actually,
Do they?
actually, right. So think about how Edge is actually used by like most people in Windows today. They get a new computer or they bring their old computer back up, they refresh it or whatever. And then they use Edge to go install Chrome, right? 65% of them do, right? Another 15 or 10% install Firefox with Edge, right? And then some of them install Opera and some install whatever. Only about 3.5% of the people using Windows actually just use Edge, right? Now, there are all kinds of reasons for that. Some of them are maybe psychological. They have bad memories of Internet Explorer. It's got an E logo. They think it's the same product. Some of them, maybe sometimes people actually use it and they don't like it. Maybe they don't like the way it looks. Who knows? But I have to say it is one of Microsoft's biggest failures on the desktop that they made a browser that was so bad that they taught people to find another browser, download
Yeah.
it, and install it.
Yeah.
Like, that is an astonishing feat. The power of the default is a real thing. It is what drove Internet Explorer usage back in the day. I mean, think about it. Chrome is not pre-installed on any major desktop computing platform. There are only 2, right? Mac and, Windows and Mac, really, but, both of those things have another browser, and yet most people, 65% of them, use that browser to install Chrome instead.
Hey, you know
That's
what?
astonishing. It's
Curious
astonishing.
about this because I don't have the numbers in front of me and I can't remember.
Yep.
What's the percentage of Mac users, of Mac OS
Yeah.
users that actually install Chrome opposed to using
I
Safari?
don't know. It's
I'm
not gonna
willing
be
to bet.
65%, but
I'm willing to bet it's going to be higher, a higher user base of Safari users compared to Windows users that use Edge.
that's a fact. That's
Okay,
a fact. It is a tiny percentage of people that use Edge. I would imagine Safari on Mac could be 50%-ish of all browsers. It's gonna be a big number. Safari's a good browser,
it's a very
and
good browser.
depending
Yeah,
yeah, depending on how you do things, if you're not going cross-platform at all, if you're sticking in the Apple ecosystem, use Safari. It's safe, it renders things great, it works great, it got a nice minimal interface, it's a good browser. The problem for me and for a lot of other people is that it doesn't work cross-platform, so I can't really I can't use it on Windows, I can't use it on Android, it's kind of a non-starter. Um, but, when you bring up Edge, the new Edge, it looks like Chrome, and I actually think, like, psychologically, and, as a obviously, as a non-professional psychologist or psychiatrist, um, a lot of people will come up and they'll say, "Oh, I already have it." You know, like, the fact that it looks like Chrome may in fact be a selling point for this product, I also think that if you know what you're doing, and a lot of Mac people I think would fall into this category, I do believe there is a market for something that is essentially Chrome with all of the Google stuff stripped out of it, right? Some of the Google stuff is useful. There's some account sync stuff you get that kind of happens automatically through the browser, but you know what? You can do account sync through other browsers. You just sign in. I mean, I do it now in the new Edge. I've done it in Firefox. I've done it in Safari.
and
Um,
that account sync though, it's becoming a
mhm.
little bit because the browsers have gotten so good at kind of having all your passwords and syncing everything together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're kind of having to choose an ecosystem rather than being able to jump back and forth. On my phone, I don't use Chrome. I don't
Right.
use the Chrome browser on my phone. I use Safari. So some stuff is always missing that I would have on Chrome because that's what I use
Yeah, but
daily on
the
my
funny thing is,
computer.
here's a little tip for people, right? So, I just described the situation with the new Edge today, meaning that it doesn't sync anything but your bookmarks. We'll call them bookmarks because everyone else does. At some point, you'll be able to save, or rather sync passwords, which I think is one of the more important things. And then some of the form autofill stuff, which is obviously important as well. You can do a one-time import of that stuff and get that. So, for example, if you use Chrome on the Mac and you use Safari on your iPhone, whatever. The way to get that stuff between the two is to, on the Mac, install, well, you already have Safari. So go into Safari, import all your data from Chrome, and that will sync through your iCloud account to your mobile device. And then you'll have
Mhm.
it. Now, yeah, I'm sorry, it won't sync. It will do a one time, one way import, right? If you later change a password up in Chrome or you add an account up in Chrome, no, you're not going to get that. But you could just, once a month or something or whatever the time frame is, go in, import, just uncheck everything except for passwords, so you don't get a bunch of duplicates, and you'll get it. I mean, it will. You can do it. Or by the way, you could use a third party tool, right? You could use LastPass or One Password or one of those kind of things for passwords.
Are you
But
using any of those or no?
no, I no. So I do use Chrome for that. I looked into doing this. I temporarily did do it. Brad uses something called One Pass or One Password, I guess. I tried that, and there's a complicated reason why I'm experimenting with this, but it basically has to do something with, if I were to use Edge on desktop and I wanted to use Edge on mobile, could Edge be used as the password manager in Android? And the answer is yes, it could. I don't believe that it is designed to do it that way today, because you can actually replace the Google Sync for that stuff with a third-party product. Anyway, that was a little far afield. Sorry if that confused anybody,
No.
but no, the answer is no. I use Chrome.
I'm curious to see how this does, and overall with real world usage over time, because that really is the good test here, right? Real world
Yeah.
usage where
Yep.
millions of people are potentially using this thing and seeing how it kind of works for them. Opera, on the other hand, also put out a new update today or
Yeah.
yesterday,
Yeah. And right.
and they're
Opera,
Chromium.
they're Chrome. That's right. And their whole thing over the past few releases has been something Microsoft used to talk about back in, I don't know, probably Windows 8 timeframe. It was the, get out of the way and let the content do the talking kind of thing. Like, their whole deal is the browser interface is very minimalistic, which, actually I like, and I think a lot of people like. Um, and they, of course, have a mobile client. You can sync back and forth. You can use a third party password manager if you want to do that. I mean, it's got all that stuff. I don't know. I think part of the appeal of Edge, the new Edge for me, is that as a Windows user, and for me in particular, as like a Windows reviewer or a person who does what I do, I'm on different computers all the time. Having to do less to bring a computer up is actually kind of a nice bonus. And so I can sign into Windows 10 with my Microsoft account, and that browser's signed in and ready to go. Everything's synced, or will be. It's not today, but eventually that stuff's all going to just work. And there's actually a huge benefit to that. Not that installing Chrome and going through the 2FA thing to get my Google account going and then waiting for all the web apps or I guess they're extensions or whatever that I have installed to kind of populate the thing. And then I have to go sign into all of them, whatever. There's a little process you go through, but eliminating a step like that is actually kind of a big deal, you
Yeah,
know,
big time.
if you can just use something that's built in, and especially, again, especially when you're potentially moving from machine to machine on a weekly basis or whatever it is. I know that's not common, but I kind of, if this thing could work, I would use it. I always said that about Edge. I mean, that was the point of it. Once or twice a year, new version of Edge would come out, and I would evaluate it. And back on V1, I made a big list. This is everything that's wrong with it. This is what prevents me from using it. And it's not. Well, in the beginning, there were some big issues. You're like, no, I can't. This end of story. I can't use it. Over time, it became a list of minor cuts, but they kind of added up to a. Yeah, I just don't. It's not
Well,
working
I
for
mean,
me.
you brought up something interesting, and we could talk about a little bit.
Mhm.
Is how bloated Edge has gotten, and I'm sorry, Chrome has gotten, not Edge.
Yeah, yeah,
Chrome has
yeah.
gotten. And I'm, I listen. It's going to be no matter what application, what if you install Opera right now to test it out, it's going to be blazing fast because you don't have all the stuff in there.
Right.
On a clean, clean install of Opera or a clean install of Chromium Edge, you're not going to have a lot of the bloat that you would with a browser that you've been using regularly. But even without all the stuff that you have there, it is a bloated operating system at this point.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it is literally an operating system, and uh, so now we have it in Windows, right? So
yeah, it's an
I mean, I
uploaded
have
operating
found,
system. That's how I feel because that you do all your work in
yeah,
Chrome. And that's probably why it's treated that way. It
yeah.
got bloated. It's very interesting.
Yeah, Edge isn't going to solve that problem, unfortunately. I mean, and again, I'm fascinated by people who install something new and think it's faster, but having used this thing for, a week, 10 days, whatever it's been, I've witnessed the massive slowdowns. I've seen massive resource usage. I've had to shut it off, turn it back on. Just, it's in beta, right? I'm not complaining about the quality of what Microsoft's done, nor am I complaining about the move to Chrome. I think it was the right decision, but don't fool yourself. This is not Chrome done right. This is Chrome done the Microsoft way. And that may correspond with some people's feelings about Google in their life. And Microsoft has turned off an incredible number of Google services or whatever,
Yeah,
Google
very
tracking
interesting.
and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all interesting. Guys, I want to continue this, and I do want to talk about my experience with the iPhone XR, the 10R. Sorry. I feel like it should be XR at this point, Paul. Can we just call it the XR?
Can we,
Just ca
could they
can't
not
we
use Roman numerals in this
could
one
they?
product? I mean,
Could
like,
they not do it?
seriously.
My brain has stopped. Before we continue, I want to talk about our great sponsor, and that's Storyblocks. I love these guys. You can head on over to storyblocks.com/whatthetech to learn more about Storyblocks videos. We just started using Storyblocks because we're changing a lot of our graphics here for all the stuff that we're doing. And I know as a content creator how expensive it could be when you're searching for the right stuff. The thing about Storyblocks is that, and what makes them different is that it's the first place that creators could go to find amazing content for a fraction of the usual cost. They provide 4K video, 1080p video, whatever you need, and their unique subscription model allows members to save while the artists are earning more, which I could definitely get behind. They also support the latest formats like VR and 360 video, and they provide all the building blocks for your amazing, amazing content that you're creating. They have a great plan, which I really like. It's unlimited downloads, which goes a very long way. If you want to try something out, you don't have to be afraid of it not working for you, and now you're out of whatever you purchased. Some other services offer you the ability to download one thing, and that's it. You're done, which is terrible. They give you access to high quality 4K stock videos without blowing your budget, obviously. And you could do a lot of stuff like After Effects templates. You could do audio. You could do images. You could do all the things that you need in one stop, which is amazing. Here's a great example. You're looking for some sort of aerial drone photo of the Statue of Liberty because you're doing a video on New York City. Bam, they got it. Super easy. This is actually a great service, and I'm very much behind it. I'm very much behind a company that kind of allows content creators to mix and match and see what they like. And this is a cool thing. Uh, let's say you want to post this. It's that's it. You could post it. You're not going to get a takedown notice. That which goes a long way. Trust me, I've had it happen to me. Storyblocks.com/whatthetech. Next week, I'm going to have a sample of what we're working on. I was trying to get it up and running today, but I was slammed last week with content that I had to work on. So I did not get a chance to do that, unfortunately. But I'll be able to do that next week and I'm going to post it so you guys can see how it works. I absolutely love this. All content is royalty free for commercial and personal use. And there's new content each and every week. You can go and check it out. There are clips added all the time. Storyblocks.com/whatthetech. Paul, I want to tell you about my experience with the iPhone XR.
Okay. What were
I
you using before? You're using like a 8 Plus still or something?
So yeah, no, I have the 9 Plus, right? That's my everyday
The
phone that I
9 Plus?
use. The
There's no
the, the
such thing,
Samsung.
Andrew.
Samsung.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
Samsung.
no, but you had an
Yeah.
Apple. I thought you
I,
had
I
an
do. I
iPhone as
have a
well.
7 Plus. I have a 7
A
Plus.
7 Plus. Okay.
So for weeks now, I've been kind of talking about how this is good enough. Okay, this
Yep.
phone is
Yep.
good enough. It's above good enough. It works. It does everything. You can still
Mhm.
take great photos. Um, I so my friend Josh Combe came over and he was staying here for the week and he gave me his phone to use. He's like, "Oh, use this phone because you had another one." He's like, "Take the photos and stuff with this because it's great." I'm like, it's a 10R. I kind of want the 10S. That would be the one to use." I have to tell you, Paul, the picture quality on this thing is remarkable.
Mm.
Very good. The phone
Mhm.
is super fast. That is a good enough phone for anybody to buy.
Yeah.
I'm almost curious if Apple made too good of a phone at that price point, and now they're suffering sales of the higher end phones. Because this phone would be the one I would get. I would not get the 10s if I was walking into an Apple
Yeah.
store. I would want the one with the colors, and I would want the
Yeah.
one that's way cheaper. Now, I'm not going based on the fact that I really like to take photos and I want the higher camera, but there's no other reason to really
Yeah. This is
not
the one I
purchase this.
bought, by the way. I mean, that's what I have.
You have it.
I,
Okay.
um, I mean, so a couple of pros and cons here, right? So, on the iPhone 10s and 10s Max, one of the things they do that I kinda don't like is you don't want the base version, right? You wanna go one step up, and on those models, you go from 64 gigs to 256 gigs of storage, and I think it's $150 more, if I'm not mistaken, for that jump. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
it's,
Something.
you're getting something really expensive. On the, iPhone 10R, you can go from 64 to 128. We're like, great, that's exactly what I want, and it's cheaper. It's cheaper to do that. So the phone's cheaper, the upgrade's cheaper. That's good. The materials to me are all very high quality. No one would ever hold an iPhone 10R and think this was a cheap piece of plastic or crap, whatever. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. Um, the unfortunate reality of the LCD screen technology is that you have to have a backlight, and the backlight intrudes on the edges of the screen and in the form of a gigantic bezel. And so if you were to look at this thing next to a 10S, you would see that the 10S absolutely has a bezel all the way around it, contrary to the all display claims that Apple makes. But the one on the 10R is worse. Like it's definitely noticeable. Um, I had bought one back in the fall. I got like the red version,
Mhm.
and because of that, I do like that it comes in colors, but the black bezel stood out more, you know?
Oh, because
So when
it's
I
red on
bought
the other
one to
side.
keep, yeah, I bought a black one, and now you kinda don't see it as much, and, that to me, that was kind of a big deal. But this is gonna sound stupid. The photography, like, you know how much I care about photography. I agree with you, the camera is very good. I mean, it's not Google Pixel good, it's not Huawei good, but, it's very good. And I think day to day, you're right, it's probably just about as good as the iPhone XS. Um, that's not the issue. The issue is, and I can't explain this, but Apple makes wonderful cases for the 10s and the 10s Max. They make one case for the 10R. It's see-through plastic. It's hard plastic. It's incredibly hard to get off of the device. So much so that when I did finally pry it off, I was scared to death I was going to bend it. Like, it was so forcibly on. It was really frustrating to me. What I really want is like that Apple leather case, right? And they don't sell it. And so I bought a third party case that looks like the Apple case somewhat. And so you can kind of see there.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of looks
Well,
like the Apple
they don't
case.
want you to block the beautiful,
Yeah, but they
colored
sell them
backing.
for the other one. Like, why wouldn't you
Yeah.
sell this? But I think the facial Face ID login stuff is great. The performance, like you said, is great. The quality of the screen is great. I mean, I suppose if you were sitting next to an iPhone 10s and you kind of compared them side by side, I'm sure you could see the difference. I'm sure. I, I think it looks beautiful. It's a beautiful screen.
I mean, we've constantly spoken about how, y the price point of these phones have gotten so bloated,
Yeah.
and it's actually I know we have their apologists that say, "Well, R&D costs have to be incorporated."
Oh, stop. Stop.
Here's how we look at this. The starting price of this phone is 449,
Right.
right? 500 bucks. Let's say five hundred
No, it's
dollars.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
no,
it's
no.
not.
Oh, that's a
No,
trade-in. I'm sorry. I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no, it's not.
What's the starting? It's
750.
750.
750.
Okay. $750. The
Yeah,
starting price point of the 10S is
1,000.
$1,000. That's a big
That
jump.
that's right. So, like, what are you getting for 250 bucks, right? You are getting a slightly better camera because it has what's the difference? The dual lens in the back, and I think that's good for portrait mode and possibly a few
Paul,
other
I
things.
use portrait mode on this thing.
I know, I know,
I
I know. I agree.
and I used it indoors, okay? I used it
Right.
indoors. I know there are flaws with portrait
No,
mode. It's not
it's
it's
computational. I think
great.
it works great. I know, I agree with you 100%. That's not a reason to do it. The screen, I honestly, for most people, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. But there are obviously, and then the build materials, it's like aluminum versus, stainless steel. Please, there's no I couldn't care less about that. So, I made the same choice,
So let me
you know?
see. If you trade in your device, I don't want to
Well, let me
trade
tell
in
you what I
anything.
did. I can tell you exactly what the cost of mine was. Because like you said, let me just look it up. Remember I had bought a refurbished iPhone 7 over the holidays last year, right? And I don't remember I'll have to find it. Let me see if I can find it. But um at, at over the post holidays, Apple kept having all these sales. And one of the kind of sales they had was this extra trade-in value on phones. And I thought to myself, man, I might be able to get, you know, a new iPhone and trade in my refurbished one I just got and not lose a lot of money. And actually, that did work out for me. So let's see, I can't find the exact thing, but if you, let's see if I apologize, I didn't put it in the review, but I want to say, let's say I got it was somewhere between 250 and 300. And so you're basically paying, how does that work out? 300 off of that is 450, you know? And in
Yeah.
my case, I had some Apple credit because I traded in like an iPad Pro previous gen and some other stuff. And so like I ended up walking away like not paying anything for it,
That's great.
between the yeah, yeah. So most people are going to walk into this with something to trade in. And Apple
If
right now, that the reason you see that 449 thing is they're basically offering double the value that they used to
so,
offer.
if you look at this, for example, right? I'm looking at the lineup. So if you trade in an iPhone 6
Mhm.
or let's say a 6 Plus, because a lot of people have the 6 Plus, the 6 Plus S, it's going to
Yeah,
come out to $20.99 a month, or for the 10s, it's going to be $31.99 a month.
right.
They want these old phones. They want you. They want you to never even think about them at this point. They want you to go over to the new stuff. But if you trade in a new
Oh,
phone and you're paying
yeah,
only $20 a month for this phone, it's not a bad get.
I found the numbers on my
Okay,
in
what was
case
it?
anyone cares. I
Yeah.
bought a refurbished 128 gig iPhone 7 from Amazon.com for $320, and Apple gave me $250 on trade-in. I had $600 in Apple gift certificates, because I traded in a MacBook Air to buy the new MacBook Air and an iPad Pro. So those together were $600. $600 plus $250 is $850, which is exactly what an iPhone 10R with 120 gigs of storage cost after
So
shipping and taxes. It's actually $800.
I
So
know this
I used the difference to buy a case.
use a difference by case. I know this is old news, but I mean it's really daunting when you look at. I just built an iPhone 10s, for example, that I would buy,
Yep.
and it's going to cost $53 a month.
Yeah.
Or I could pay $1,250.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the exact, what's the price when you go to 256? Is it
Two
150?
256 is the 256 is 1249 for the 10s, 10
But how
s
much is it?
Max.
Yeah, no, I mean okay, so it's $150 more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah.
That's really expensive. So I did use it, and I was very impressed by. I mean, everything that you said. Essentially, it is the phone to get, and I would love to see a comparison of the numbers of how many people are buying this compared to the 10s. Which I don't know if
Well,
they're out there.
we don't know, we're never gonna go those figures, but we do know that the iPhone 10R has been the best-selling iPhone. So,
Yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't it be?
yeah.
It's everything that the other one has, except for a couple of little details
They
that
gotta
most
make
people don't
cases. I
care.
don't understand why they don't make cases. It's crazy.
They don't want you to have a case. They want you to walk around with it without a case and bang it up, and then you go in there and you buy a new one. That's how they're gonna get you.
I mean,
That's a
well,
conspiracy.
this is the problem with all iPhones, and it's true of the iPhone 10s as well. They're so beautiful, and they feel so nice in your hand. You don't wanna put it in a case, but these things they're completely made of glass, and this wonderful case I bought comes right off, and it's like an Apple case, but, it's kind of, reflecty there, but, it's beautiful. It's you're not really getting it here, but it's just it's beautiful. It feels nice,
Yeah.
Now you gotta go back in your case because I don't wanna hurt you.
That's hysterical. Um, what's your Android phone that you're using right now? It's the Pixel,
The Huawei
the
Mate
Huawei.
20 Pro. Yeah.
Any updates on that? I'm curious to know if your opinion has
Yeah.
changed on it because I know you really like it.
Siri said, "That's what I thought," for some reason. Um, yeah, so after I reviewed it, whenever that was, a month or 2 ago, I went back to the Google Pixel specifically to see if, you know, I thought differently and, it whatever, and I I missed it, and so I've gone back to the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. The photography is fantastic. The one thing I didn't like about it was the custom skin that Huawei puts on their phones. I just don't like it, but you can replace it. So I've used the Action launcher for a while. I just switched to the Microsoft launcher, because they came up with a new version. I just wanted to kind of see what that was all about. But I'm probably going to stick with it. It's great, and that's one of those neat things about Android. You can customize it to your heart's content. So, but this is another one. Like I have this is the phone. I have a case on it, as you can see. This case arrived the day that this thing fell off my counter and shattered on my kitchen floor, so the back of it's
Jeez.
cracked. Because like the new iPhones, it's made completely of glass, you know, and, glass and tile do
And
not,
where would you take that to get fixed? You know?
exactly. Yeah, China, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough in the United States because obviously they don't have an official presence here. They basically only sell their phones through, I think it's Walmart and Amazon. They don't have the wireless carrier stuff here. So, yeah, that's a problem, and that's a huge advantage for Apple, obviously. Did we just talk about this? I felt like maybe was
Yeah.
that last week?
Yeah, that was last week.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. I do want to talk about the May release. People have been
Mhm.
asking and they want to get your opinion on this. Before we continue, I want to thank another one of our great sponsors, longtime sponsor, and that's hover.com, where you can buy your domain names. I have 200 something domain names, which is insane. I've been buying domain names for years, and I actually occasionally sell them. Not that I look to sell, but people contact me and they ask to buy it. So I've offloaded a lot of this. But if you have a business, you're starting a business, you want to kind of protect assets that you have. Buying a domain name it should be a simple process. You shouldn't have to go in there thinking you're buying a domain name. By the time you check out, it's $140 and you just got a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't even know existed. Hover doesn't do that. They do not upsell you at checkout. They want it to be a simple and honest process when you're going through to purchase your domain name. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine just started a business and they were using a Gmail address, and I was joking about this on one of my other shows, but this really happened. They started a wine and painting business, which is funny. You drink wine and you paint, and they rent out space, and so bars and restaurants want to do this, like bring people. So it's like a cover charge. You do it, and then they bring her in. And she had a Gmail address, and she had a I can't even remember, but it's one of those like at home builder website things. And her website was absolutely terrible, but it didn't even matter because people couldn't find a URL because it was this convoluted URL. She went to Hover, purchased a domain name, and she also purchased the email. So now she has an email address, a professional email address coming from her. She has a professional domain name, and she's loving it. It was a super easy process for her. And I always tell people, if you are starting a business, make sure you got a good domain name and make sure you send your emails from your domain. You don't do a Gmail business email address. I absolutely don't like that. Maybe you do, but I don't. You go to hover.com/WTT. You get 10% off your first purchase. That's hover.com/WTT. 10% off your first purchase. I want to thank Hover for supporting the show. Paul, it's
Yes.
time. It's time
Yeah.
to talk about Windows. Windows 10
Finally.
May release is coming out in May, right? Unless you are
Yep. Yep.
unless some people have it, obviously. But give us your input on this. What do you think? Changes, updates for someone that doesn't know anything.
Yep. Um, this has been a big personal battle for me because, for all the good stuff that is Windows 10, there are a couple of major issues. You can talk about, like, the inbox advertising, the crapware that's bundled with Windows 10, but the number one issue by far has been this Windows as a service nonsense, right? Where Microsoft has, just, exploded the number of updates that you get at any given time. So, back in the day, you get, like, Windows 7, you would get, I guess we would have eventually it turned into a system of monthly Patch Tuesday updates, and every once in a while, actually in Windows 7's case, you only got one, but every once in a while, every 18 months, 3 years, whatever it was, you could get a service pack, and that was like a cumulative update, and that was kinda nice to have because it gave you one update to get all up to date to that date, and then you had to install the updates that had come since. So for Windows 10, the Patch Tuesday thing continues. They do that. They added twice yearly feature updates, which are actually major Windows upgrades. So instead of getting a new version of Windows every 3 years, you get one every 6 months. That's a crazy thing to force on users, but that's what they're doing. And then they just started arbitrarily releasing updates all the time. And so those cumulative updates that used to come out once a month sometimes come out two, three, four times a month. And most of what I just described requires a reboot, sometimes a lengthy reboot. And so these things are very disruptive. And so over the past 3, 4 years with Windows 10, what we've seen is people get up in the morning, they go to their computer and it's sitting there at the login screen. It's because it installed an update overnight and they lost work.
Hmm.
People updated to a new version of Windows, even though they never wanted that. They didn't have any way to say no to that in many
Do they
cases.
even know they're updating to a new version of Windows?
Yeah, it's just stupid. So I've fought Microsoft on this for actually about 4 years, almost 4 years now. I think it dates back to about July 2016. So we'll say not quite 4 years, but and there are two. Um, I guess it impacts all of their customers. So there are kind of two major issues here. One is that businesses have proven in the past that they are not updating to new versions of Windows every 3 years like Microsoft used to do. They're on a much slower time scale, 6 years, 8 years. They look at Windows as this thing correctly that is supported for 10 years. You don't fix something that's not broken. You just stick with it. It works the way people expect. You don't screw around with it. And so they went from, they're asking these businesses now, and this has evolved over time, but in the beginning, they were asking them to upgrade every 18 months. No one was ever going to do that. And of course, the time frame is kind of stretched out and whatever. But the bigger problem for me, because I care about people, not businesses, and I cover personal technology, not enterprise technology, is that Windows 10 home users had no way to counter these updates. If you had Windows 10 Pro or Home, you could defer or delay updates for certain time frames, right? And so you could delay a feature update for a year. You know, you could go into settings. I don't want this thing. I don't ever want to be shown this. But if you were as a Windows 10 home user, just being pragmatic, saying, I want to make sure my computer is up to date, you actually go check for updates. You could get a major version upgrade right then because you looked. And that's not what you were looking for. You just wanted security updates, but you didn't have any way to specify this. There was no way to delay those updates without doing workarounds, which would endanger your system. So this new update, which is a feature update, right? So a major Windows upgrade, which they're calling the May 2019 update or Windows 10 version 1903, is changing all that, right? And so for the first time, Windows Home users will be able to defer updates of all kinds for up to 35 days. Now, it's not perfect. The problem is you can only really delay up to 7 days, but you can do it 5 times in a row. So you as the user have to think, go into this interface and delay the updates again. So you can do that. Um, a better system would be to let them delay updates for some period of time, whatever it's 35 days, let's say, if that's the figure for some reason. And as in my position, would recommend that everybody on earth delay every update for 35 days because there are always problems. Not every month, but every few months there's a problem. This is not an uncommon thing. There are always problems with these updates.
Sure.
The feature updates that I talked about that are version upgrades, the last two feature updates that Microsoft released were disasters. One of them had to be pulled at the last second before it was released. The second one was released and was so bad they had to pull it, and then they took 6 weeks to fix it. You don't want to be on the front lines of that as a normal user.
No.
It's not 100% what I was asking for, but it is basically what I was asking for, which is that all Windows 10 users be treated equally. Any human being should be able to delay an update and not get it. And then feature updates are now segregated in Windows Update so that if you check for updates, you're not going to automatically get a feature update. It will show you that it's there, but you have to go and choose to install it. And so this is a major victory for common sense. It's a major victory for Microsoft's customers. It's the right thing. It's what they should have done, like I said, 4 years ago. They've been the stupidest. Well, no, Windows 8 was the stupidest, but this has been one of the stupidest time periods in Windows and most anti-customer behaviors that I've ever seen out of Microsoft. And that's saying something because of the antitrust stuff in Windows 8. But it was horrible what they were doing to people with these updates. So they finally woke up.
I got
By the
a
way,
yeah.
sorry, just real quick. I'm
No, no,
sorry. I
go
just
ahead.
want to. I've not written this yet. I guess I will um, reveal my thoughts here for the first time on this. A lot of people have asked me why. Why is Microsoft doing this? One of the things that happened last year is that Terry Myerson left the company. He was the guy that ran Windows before, and it's become obvious in the time since he's left that maybe many of the things that happened were kind of his decision, and maybe now with he's gone, they were kind of making the right decision or whatever. Is this why they're making this change now? And I got to tell you, I don't think it is. I think the problem is that Windows 7 is now in its last year of support, and on January, I think it's 14th or 20th or whatever, 2020, Windows 7 will exit support. You won't get updates anymore. It will literally be unsafe to use this operating system. And that on both the side of individuals and businesses, that the vast majority of computers out there still running Windows 7 are doing so because there's nothing broken and everything's fine. And those people do not want Windows 7, 10 because they've heard what a nightmare it is with all these updates. And so I think
Uh,
what they're trying to do is
Well, enterprise is
appease
gonna
those guys.
for
And yeah,
enterprise, it has to be a little alarming that there's so many updates so often.
yeah. No, they do have more control in the enterprise. If you're in Windows 10 Enterprise, you do have additional controls. You can actually stick on any given version of Windows 10 for some lengthy period of time. It's not 10 years, but I think it might be 3 years, something like that. So you can choose not to do that. You still have to install security updates on some schedule. You can defer those, but eventually you still have to install those. But yeah, I think this has been a giant treadmill for businesses, and the companies that have held out so far and are looking at this deadline and are thinking like, I don't, they don't want to be on that treadmill. How do we stop this? And I think this concession was made in part, maybe primarily, to kind of erase the one upgrade blocker for a lot of its customers. I think this is
Mm,
why. I think Windows 7 is why this happened.
interesting. I actually, it's funny. Last week I ran into a viewer or a listener of the show,
Mhm.
and they. It was funny. I'm sitting actually at press, and he tapped me on my shoulder. He goes, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" I'm like, I thought he wanted me to move my seat. He goes, "Can you ask Paul why, why the
What's the deal?
yeah, what's the deal with Paul? Why the Surface laptop even comes with Windows Home?"
Oh. So,
And I asked, I said, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, I went to the Microsoft store and I went to buy it, and
yep.
they had no Windows Pro versions of it in stock,
Yeah,
and I
that's right.
just couldn't understand why they would even put Windows Home on this device."
So I can't ask this guy this question because he's not here, but I would ask him a question in response, which is why? What is it? What is in Windows Pro that you need? And I honestly, in most cases, there's not really an answer to that anymore because if you look at I don't remember when this changed. It might have been Surface Book 2 was the first one, but Microsoft, two things happened simultaneously and are in the same year. Um, Microsoft recast Windows 10 Home as a system that would make sense for most individuals, right? And Windows 10 Pro only includes a very small handful of features that are kind of esoteric in nature. Hyper-V, the ability to create BitLocker encrypted disks, Active Directory support, that kind of stuff that most people just don't need, right? And the cost is significantly more. That's arbitrary. Microsoft sets the cost, whatever. But most home users actually don't need Windows 10 Pro. So, not that like the Surface team is getting charged more
But
for Surface 10 Pro, but they're trying. I think what they're trying to do is do the same thing that they're requiring their PC maker partners to do. So, if you go to buy a Surface Pro or a Surface laptop or a Surface Book, if I'm not mistaken, Surface Book 2, as an individual, like you would at the Microsoft store, or if you buy it online, or if you buy it from Best Buy, yeah, it's going to come with Windows 10 Home. If you want to buy that machine with Windows 10 Pro, you have to buy it through Microsoft's business store.
yeah,
It's
well,
going to cost.
I'll tell you this: the
It's
Surface
going to
Book
cost more.
2 does not come with Home.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay,
It doesn't, and he ended
that
up
might
buying
be
the
because
Surface Book 2.
well, but it is a personal workstation. It
Yeah.
does have a dedicated graphics chip. I mean, there might be, reasons for that. The people who buy those things are developers who might need Hyper-V or power users of whatever kind.
You know what though? You brought up an interesting thing. You said, "Why does he need the pro version?" I'm
Yeah,
willing to bet he doesn't really need the pro version. He
right.
just is thinking back on how Windows was,
Yeah. Oh, no,
where
it took
you
me a while to
wanted
get
you
past
needed
this.
the
Yep.
yeah, and I don't think
I
people
always
have
did
gotten
that.
past it. I don't think people have, and I think that's a
It
big
w
marketing problem for Microsoft.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that the other one's called Pro. And, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people think, like, "I'm a pro. I mean, why don't I have the Pro? I'm not," Maybe they could call it, home and business, like they did briefly for one version, I think. And maybe that would make it feel better for people or whatever. But we didn't really see a lot of this. But I don't know if you remember this. I think it was a year ago, January. Brad had gotten a hold of a bunch of internal Microsoft documentation about how
Hmm.
they were changing the SKUs, and there were going to be kind of like premium versions of Home and of Pro, which would serve specialty markets. And so the Pro version has appeared. It's the workstation SKU, and that's for machines that have tons of memory and many processor cores, like essentially true workstations. And then in the home version, the premium, the premium upgrade or whatever it was called, was going to be for gamers who likewise had
Yeah.
multi-core things with multiple graphics cards and whatever. And so those things would cost a little bit more and would have additional capabilities that most people wouldn't need. But you can go back in time to Windows XP. Let's say Windows XP when it first launched had Home and Pro. And Microsoft has always kind of had to make this arbitrary line in the sand. There was it's kind of hard to remember this, but these interfaces actually they're still in Windows. If you open like File Explorer today and you right click on a thing, like I got to find let me just find a folder, and there's two things in here you'll see. There's for sharing, right? Let me just see, make sure that's true. Because this used to be the old Home Pro thing, right? So yeah, there's a share. No, it's different now. Sorry. What you want to do is like share it over the home network. So there's like the sorry, I can't even find it in my own thing. Um, well, anyway, there's two interfaces for sharing, and so back in the day, sharing over home network, or over any network. So home users got this simple wizard, and then pro users got this more complex thing, which was actually way better. And like I always actually preferred that, and still use it today. So if I want to, like actually I do this on my laptop computers. Like I'll navigate to my Sorry, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'll navigate to my desktop and I'll right click on it and I'll go to properties and then there's a sharing tab, right? Actually, there it is. I'm sorry. So there's two interfaces here. One just says share, and this is home. This is home share. But then there's advanced sharing, and that was pro share. And in advanced sharing, you can actually uh, you know, specify permissions like who exactly has access to the share, and like it's kind of
Mm,
it's kind of business oriented, right?
yeah.
I still use that interface. I still kind of prefer it, but that's like a vestigial leftover to one of the arbitrary ways that Microsoft used to divide home from pro. Things like BitLocker is a good example. Like Home Pro and all other versions of Windows all support BitLocker encrypted disks, but only Pro or higher can actually make the disk, right? Kind of arbitrary. I mean, why wouldn't a home user want to encrypt a disk, protect themselves? I don't know. And so eventually over time, they built in like simple disk encryption that was on by default for home machines. And, they this kind of dicked around with it over the years. So I think the answer is probably most people just don't need it. And the typical Surface laptop buyer is not going to use Hyper-V,
Yeah.
frankly. And, maybe a few of the other things that are in there.
Yeah, I think it's just people thinking they need it. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down
People
to.
like the upsell. We just talked about
Yeah.
this. We would just talk about the iPhone 10R, right? What was the first thing I said? I talked about that the upgrade. You don't buy the base one, you buy the next one. You feel like you're getting something, right? Now, in this case, you're literally getting something, but I think that's a very common thing. You sell a product for some cheap price to get people into the store, whether it's a car, a computer, whatever it is. And when they get there, there's an affordable upgrade that's more than they intended to spend, but it's not
Yeah.
extravagant, and that's the one they buy.
Listen,
And
Paul,
I
I
think that's
know
the upsell
I
in Pro,
I know you may be buying a new car. Make sure you get the undercoating.
The undercoating, yeah,
Let's
exactly.
upsell let's
The
upsell
dealer
you with the
installed undercoat.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example.
What is going on outside? Wow. Do you hear
What's
that?
wrong? Mm-mm.
I'm hearing obscene amount of honking happening.
No. Well, as
Like,
long as it's not sirens.
I don't know what this is. Jeez. It could be I have no idea what this is. It's very loud. Anyway, let's wrap it up for today. Hey, Paul, you're doing an AMA before we forget.
Yeah.
On Reddit right now. Where can people go to ask you questions? I
Right.
asked you a question. I don't know if you answered it.
I was just told I'm doing a poor job, and as I explained to the person I work with, I told you I have a podcast today, so I'm gonna jump in there after the show. But there's an AMA subreddit on Reddit. If you don't know where that is, I can't help you, but I have a link to it on my website. So if you go to Thurrott.com, you see a link
I'll
to
tell
it.
you guys where it
We've
is
done
right
one.
now. If you're watching
Yeah.
this live, go ask Paul a question. It's
Oh, actually,
Reddit.
don't because I already have like 600 questions to get to.
Okay, if you want to see Paul answering questions and
Yes,
don't
please.
ask him any more questions, go to reddit.com
Right.
slash r slash IAMA. That's where
Oh,
you could
actually, I'm
go
sorry.
and maybe you could ask Brad a question. Maybe you want to talk
Yeah,
to
ask Brad.
Brad
Make
on
sure
that,
you
Paul.
specify Brad.
Yeah,
Brad,
ask
actually,
Brad.
there are 227 comments. I guess that's not questions. There are
Oh, look, my name is on
720.
there. You said you put my
Yeah,
name on there. That's
you're in
nice.
my Andrew. You're part of
Oh,
my official bio.
I am. I
Hmm.
like that. I like that. It makes me feel a lot better working with you. I normally deal with a lot of, S heads.
Sure,
I was going to
sure.
curse. I was told I'm not allowed to curse anymore on the show by my
Hmm,
boss. Apparently, I have a boss now.
hmm.
You always have a
Who's
boss. My ad agency. Not very happy with some of the language I use sometimes when I get passionate about something. They're
right?
still honking, by the way.
Yeah.
The honking is still happening, so I don't know what this is. It may
Maybe
be
they're
the end
honking
of the
for that
world.
embarrassing little red microphone you're using now for some
Hey,
reason.
why don't you like this? This was my original microphone. I brought it back. It's my 10-year anniversary of GFQ. I brought my
Was that like Kitty's first microphone or something like?
baby's first mic
Mhm.
by Mattel. Go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. Subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Paul has to leave today, but normally we do a bonus show at the end of the show. If you go to patreon.com/whatthetech. Now people are yelling. I'm hearing this. Patreon.com/whatthetech. You can go there and fund us as little as $1 per episode, or you could fund us more. And this keeps the lights on in the studio. We could, keep this show going. It's viewer supported, obviously, on top of the ads that we do. But I absolutely love the Patreon stuff, and we'd make the bonus content available there. Anything else, Paul? No, I guess that's it. Thurrott, go to Thurrott.com. You can follow Paul at Thurrott, and we'll see you next time. Take care.